Hey guys, thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Revealed. Last week, we gave you a quick look at a closet that we were about to fabricate, and Ian's been in the shop for the last week putting these pieces together. So let me kind of take you on a tour of what this closet's going to look like and walk you through a few of the features. Right where I'm standing is the actual entry door into the closet. So this space here would be a hallway, and right in between these two cabinets is the door. So this is where you walk in. So immediately to our right, what this is going to be is adjustable shelves here and a couple of doored cabinets below. This cabinet is going to be butt up against the wall. So you can see we do have a wider filler here. This is for scribing so that we can get a nice tight clean edge against that wall. And yes, these are miter wrapped. So the grain is continuing around that miter. These are all open cabinets here, except for a few. There's only two that actually get doors or drawer fronts. This being one of them, but that is going to be open and you will see that miter. So we want to make sure it is nice and clean and looks good. So moving on down, this space here actually will match this space. So you can see we have all the joinery already cut in. We use a combination of Lamello tenso clips and dominoes. This closet is up on the 3rd floor, and the only way to get it in there is by going up the stairs. So all of these pieces need to be disassembled to be brought in. We really don't have the space to be bringing up cabinets that are this large. So everything is just temporarily assembled with dominoes and tenso clips so that we can fully reassemble this in the field. We are making sure we're going through and completely labeling every piece so that we know exactly where they go once it comes time to install them, and there's no confusion later on down the road. These two cases here are exactly the same. We do have shelves that will come across the top as well as the bottom. These will each have 2 closet rods at 36 inches on center, ample space to hang a number of different things, extra storage here, and they do even have some additional storage above. It's not very large, but things like a couple extra shoe boxes or miscellaneous items that maybe they only wear seasonally. So right behind me, this here I guess you could consider the more dresser side of things. So these will all be drawers, and as you can see, we do have quite a bit of space going back, so these drawers are going to be extra deep. We're actually going with a 27-inch drawer for the lower 2, and this wall is on an angle from the mansard roof, so we are going to have 2 24-inch drawers in the top sections as well. So again, just some really oversized drawers, lots of storage here with some additional open shelving above. We went ahead and doubled up on the thickness of these shelves, making them a full 1.5 inches. Because this is such a large span and we have minimal support from the back, we need to make sure that these shelves aren't going to sag and bow over time. So making these a little bit thicker is going to help with that. And then these pieces here are actually going to be the drawer fronts for each of these drawers. They are all grain matched going up, and then they're book matched on the 2 sides. Because this is just a closet space, we wanted to try and approach this from a more budget conscious standpoint, but we still wanted it to look good and match some of the other elements throughout this master suite. So we took the walnut that is our standard interior. It's pre-finished, which we also use walnut in several other parts of this project. Some are interiors and some are completely open cabinets just like this. So we took some of those elements, incorporated them here into the closet space so that everything looks cohesive and it was still practical and utilitarian. And it is the same material that we are using on the interiors of our cabinets. We're just kind of using it in a little bit of a different manner where it is completely exposed. We also take the same approach with the edge banding, where we are applying a pre-finished walnut edge banding. It's the same as the pre-finished walnut plywood, and we don't get this white line coming down between the edge banding and the actual plywood. We're using color matched glue, and anytime we are sanding to break that edge, we are applying either a wipe-on poly or using a stain marker so that we do get that color back into that white line and it looks really crisp and sharp. Another thing you might have noticed is there's no backs on any of these cabinets. So everything behind these cabinets is just going to be the painted wall. So how are we mounting these pieces to the wall? Now, up on the top of every shelf and on the underside of the bottom shelves, we're using cleat stock. So The way this works is, let me just kind of show you on the front here. We're going to take the cleat stock, again, imagining that this is on the back side of the shelf, and we attach the cleat stock directly to the back of the shelf, and then this will allow us to screw into our studs and mount these units directly to the wall, both high and low, without actually being able to see this fastener. This is about 8 feet in the air, and that's just under a foot off the ground. So you're really never going to see these once they are pushed all the way back, and it will give us that security that we're looking for so that these units will never tip or fall from the wall. So in this bay here, we're also going to have a double hanging rod, and in the next one, just a single hanging rod with a few fixed shelves underneath. This closet was designed with the homeowner and the architect to make sure that we were really meeting the homeowner's wants and needs. This space here was something that they had asked for and actually revised in some of the drawings earlier on in the process. And this bay here will also have 2 shelves continuing across and just one hanging bar here. This will allow them to hang longer items such as dresses and long coats. Lastly, we have this cabinet here. There are 2 bays to this cabinet, and they are full of adjustable shelf pinholes. This is going to be shoe storage. This was one of the key elements that the homeowners did want. So we have 22 shelves going in here, each able to hold 2 or 3 pairs of shoes, giving them ample shoe storage. The shelves here are going to be placed at an angle. This will allow better visibility of the shoes, and we're also going to put a bar on each shelf to keep the shoes from slipping down. And we're also adding a pin or a cleat to the back of each shelf that it can hook onto the actual shelf pins themselves and keep the shelves into place. So that about does it for this episode on our South Boston renovation. I hope you guys found this informative. If there's anything in particular that you would like to see, drop us a note in the comments below. We'll try to get those on the next Instagram Live. And please drop us comments, subscribe, and let your friends know. We'll see you on the next one. Stay tuned for the Q&A.
Ken, I got an interesting question for you.
Let's hear it.
It's very crucial to our show. What is a reveal?
What is a reveal? All right, so I think the name is kind of a play on a couple different meanings of reveal.
Right.
So a lot of the times we are referring to the gaps in between our doors and our face frames, or in between the doors, countertops, doors and doors. We call that the reveal. Some people call it a gap. We call it a reveal. It could also mean when you have 2 materials, let's say like a filler and you have a crown above that, and the pieces are offset.
Yep.
That distance can also be referred to as the reveal. And then kind of the last kind of final view of a space. So once, we're showing you guys the kind of walkthrough early on, the process of how we're building it out and what happened, what have you. And then the final reveal of the actual final product. I guess even kind of thinking about it a little further, it's kind of like pulling back the curtain and revealing what we do here in the shop too. And I think that's probably the bigger premises. The intent of this show was to kind of give you the inside look at what we have going on in the shop this particular week.
Right.
And it kind of continues to grow into stuff in the field and just kind of general information.
So that question that didn't even come up on a cabinetry video or a revealed video. It came up on another one of our videos. So I'm like, actually, that's a great question to start it off.
Sure.
Do you think you've redefined reveals in any way? Because we've kind of taken reveals to a different level, I feel like. Not saying we're pioneering by any means, but I feel like at MS Builders, taking into consideration the reveals is a very high priority.
It is. I guess I'm curious, how do you mean? Just the
level of seriousness, I guess, the importance you take.
And you're referring to the spacing between the doors.
Yes.
Yeah. We do. We take it very seriously. It's an odd thing, I guess, to say that we take seriously, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we make sure our reveals are 30 seconds every time. We use spacers throughout the project to make sure that we're hitting those reveals correctly. We're taking a lot into account to keep that reveal and to keep the hardware operating appropriately. Do I think we're kind of reinventing it? I don't think so.
No, I didn't mean reinventing, but I guess just elevating more
I think are people noticing them now more? Probably. I mean, I would hope, right? That's kind of the point of sharing, is so that other people can kind of understand the level of detail that we are kind of taking these projects to, and maybe hopefully pushing other people to kind of follow suit and do the same, and just keep everything really consistent and challenge themselves to try to go a little bit further and keep those reveals as tight as possible.
All right. Damages. So I think that it was kind of a long-winded question, but it was a really good question. So you look at something before it leaves the shop. Everything looks perfect. Gets fully installed. You're kind of going through. Now there's some dents, maybe some scratches. How are you evaluating that? How are you handling that?
In a perfect world, we wouldn't have those, right? But I guess we would. Who's at fault? Let's say it was, one of the other trades. We could charge them, go back and charge them for the repair. We've never done that. We've just kind of eaten it. It's our product, and maybe we didn't do enough to protect it against the other trades getting in there. And we take a lot of precautions. I mean, you've seen a lot of the stuff that the protection that we're doing in the field to completely wrap this cabinetry up when it's both stored before final installation or as we're installing it, and after, so that other trades aren't getting in there. I had years ago at another shop I was at, we installed this kind of odd-shaped room. It was basically 5 countertops, and they each had to go in succession. You couldn't put in countertop 3 without putting in countertop 1, right? So at the end of the project, and it was a really exotic wood, it was called Babinga. Very nice, very rare. Not a lot of people use it for a lot of things here. They had the electricians back afterwards, putting in the recessed lights, and the electrician dropped a hole saw onto our countertop. It was unprotected. He didn't put a blanket down. He was just standing on it. We weren't there. We weren't on site. This was after we had left. So we had to pull that desktop out and refinish it, but it's not as easy as pulling out countertop number 2.
Right.
We had to pull out 3, 4, and 5, and then reinstall them afterwards. So it was quite a process, and we're trying to avoid situations like those. So we always wrap everything as much as possible. Yes, we could do a better job always.
Right.
But typically if something is damaged and it's just not acceptable. So we have spent a lot of time and money getting things refinished, and sometimes having to remake them if it's kind of beyond repair, a reasonable repair.
So first line of defense is preventative.
Yeah.
Okay, protect it.
Yep.
Dummy proof it. But when there is a problem, it's literally refinishing maybe, or possibly completely rebuilding.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I think it sounds a lot worse than it is. We're not doing this a lot, right? We've worked with the subs that we work with now a ton. They all are very careful. They are also of the same mindset where they don't want to damage anything either. So they take a lot of precautions as well. It's not just some random guy that we've never worked with before, kind of wearing his tool belt around, right? This kind of ties into the conversation from last week with the tool belts.
Yeah.
Just preventative, always kind of thinking about stuff like that. What can cause damage? How are we best able to avoid that damage? And what are the precautions that we can take? Because we can't rely on every other person to take the precautions necessary that we would like to see anyway.
Speaking of last week, James was on last week. Quick congratulations to James and Kate. They had a baby girl 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago now? 10 days ago. That. So go give James a congrats.
Marcy Jean.
Also, if you have any questions, throw them down there if you'd like Ken to answer it. Source for edge banding.
I think the company that we're using is called Edgeco. Okay. I probably have a half a dozen different company samples up on the board over here. We use, sometimes your local supplier will have them, your local sheet goods supplier. That's typically where we would get most of our edge banding. So while we're getting a delivery, we'll just have them throw on some edge banding there. Occasionally there's stuff that they don't have in stock. In that case, or they don't have the color or what have you, we'll just order it directly from that company. But there's a ton out there. You can just kind of Google search, edge banding. You can find every different wood, every different color. If you're doing painted or laminates or also all sorts of different things. And we have kind of toyed with the idea of getting custom colors made to match some of the paint that we do. Haven't found a reliable source for that yet. A lot of them are massive amounts of roll quantities. This is far more than what we need.
Right.
So if anybody does know of any other edge banding manufacturers that will custom finish or custom color with a smaller quantity, we're in the market as well.
Someone in the comments suggested rip your own edge. Is that
You could.
Is that feasible? I felt like that was too much.
It really depends on, I guess, the size and the application. So there's a lot of time you do want a solid edge banding, a solid stock.
Yeah.
And we did that with the bookshelves. So we milled all our own stock, ripped it all here. The bookshelves from a couple weeks ago, we had, they kind of were half lap joints, large bookshelves.
Yeah.
2 1/4 inches thick. So we ripped all our own edge banding for that. So there are going to be circumstances where you do want to rip your own. So.
All right. TJ Chippendale, do you worry about the strength of the tenso with no glue? Tenso referring to a lamello clip?
Yep, the tenso clips. They have about, I think it was 35 pounds of pressure that they clip together with. So we're using several of them. I love the lamellos. I love the tensos. I'm still on the fence with the structure. With no glue, even with alignment, there is there is a slight amount of slop in there. So I like to use the lamellos in conjunction with the dominoes. The dominoes are super tight fit. Gives us that extra strength through the tenon. But the nice thing about the lamellos is it allows us to have that extra pull on the, let's say it's a face frame piece, right? It pulls that face frame tight to the cabinet. Not super worried about it with glue. We haven't had any, or without using glue, we haven't had any issues. I would like to see a little bit more glue being used in the application with the two. But so far it's been pretty good and we haven't had any issues with that. Hold on.
Caveat.
If we're doing like a miter, so sometimes if the piece is wide enough and we can actually get the tenso in, because you don't want to blow out the back side of your miter.
Right.
We will join those two pieces with the tensos, sometimes dominoes as well, but we will always glue that miter. Okay. I do not trust them without glue on a miter. You can flex those two ends, open that miter right up, and then eventually you're liable to just snap those right out of there.
Okay. All right. So a question about the doors from last week's episode. I think they wanted to know, obviously, it sounds like those would be solid plywood doors. They wanted to know if there was any consideration of hollowing it out or having some sort of inner panel.
Yep. So plywood gets tricky with the different layers and the non-alternating layers in the middle. You might be liable to get some warping. Plywood in general, when it's so large like that, especially with Baltic birch, warps a lot, cups a lot. Just it moves, and we don't want to send anything out like that that's going to be having issues later on down the road. So one of the things that we do like to do with our doors when we're making large doors like that is use an aluminum honeycomb panel for the core. And that is a consideration. Right now we're just in the samples phase to kind of see what we want to do for the exterior before we kind of narrow down the interiors. That's probably something that I would lean toward, is kind of framing the door out, I guess similar to what you would do with like a normal door where it's framed out in poplar and then kind of skinned over with an MDF or what have you. Something like that, but instead of with the poplar, maybe we'll use some rips of plywood to give us that plywood edge look. But we'll also have the structure and stability of the core, the aluminum honeycomb core. But again, these are just, everything's kind of for debate right now.
That would be ideal to prevent warping. And then what about sound? Is that aluminum sound dampen at all, or is the solid better for sound dampening?
I don't know. I can't say we haven't done any kind of testing like that. I will tell you that the doors that we have used the honeycomb with do block out the sound pretty well. The honeycomb is hollow, but it is skinned with aluminum on either side. And then we're also adding like a core on top of that. I know it's not a lot of core, but it's not like a cardboard or paper honeycomb that's in some of the stores you can get at Home Depot kind of thing.
Right.
So it's going to provide a lot better sound dampening than that, but in comparison to a solid door, I'm not too sure.
Okay. So it's not like, it's still kind of apples to apples, not comparing it to like a really lightweight door you could probably put your fist through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not putting your fist through this door.
Do you have any material covering how to measure prior to the build? I don't know if we have a video on that.
We don't, but this is actually,
topic.
We just talked about doing the next episode of Revealed potentially on measuring, site measuring, and then also how we're breaking down our cabinetry into taking them from drawing to breaking them down to our cabinet sizes to getting them here in the shop for assembly.
Right.
So that is something that is definitely coming up. We have talked about that and do intend to do so.
What type of glue were you using with the Tenso?
Just a PVA glue. You're gluing the surface of the two pieces. You're not gluing the actual Tenso clip. So you want something that is going to adhere to your substrate. So plywood or solid wood. So just a regular PVA wood glue.
Like a Type-On?
Like a Type-On.
All right. What's up, dude? I can't see your username, so sorry.
AVP Construct. How you doing?
AVP. Matt Moore's in there too. Hey, Matt.
Matty. What would we do without Matt Moore?
Matt, this is actually a Matt question. Air channels in the vacuum bag. He didn't see them in last week's episode.
Yes, I saw that. There is a platen under. So what you're seeing in the video that looks like the bottom is just a skin over the platen to make sure that glue doesn't stick to the platen. Platen is just MDF. How many times can I say platen?
It's one word.
The platen is just MDF, so any squeeze out from the glue will stick to that platen, causing the actual pieces to stick and be permanently attached. So we add in some laminate in between there just to prevent that sticking. Usually we do cut it a little bit shorter so that there are channels going around so that air does get pulled out of there. But there are so many grooves on there and so many channels that even if we do make it a full-size sheet over our platen, it still sucks the air out just fine.
That video would be on YouTube. It wouldn't be a paid thing. Just to answer that question real quick.
Yeah.
All right, 2 questions we've definitely answered before. Just kind of quickly hit it. Does NS supply your tools?
NS supplies the larger power tools, so pretty much every stationary tool in the shop is supplied by NS. And then most of like the machine power tools, hand tools, are also NS supplied. When it comes to your, cordless drill, that's on you.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to a lot of your hand tools, that's also on you. Now that being said, a lot of the guys do bring in some of their own power tools. Even here in the shop, some of the stationary tools that are here are some of ours, not NS.
Yeah.
So it's really runs the gamut, but if there's something that we need, then NS will purchase that.
All right. And brand of cabinet feet?
We're just using the Richelieu brand. It's if you're a Richelieu customer, it's just the leg set, I think, is the code for that one.
What impact will you be buying?
Oh yeah, the impact. Probably that DeWalt I used the other day. That was real nice. No, I have I do, guys. I have 2 Makita impacts. I know you don't believe it, but I have a white one and the black one, and they are both brand new. I don't use them. Actually, they've been tossed under the bench so much they're probably beat to hell. But in my drill case, no, I do keep an impact with me. There are times that you need it.
Just in case.
Just in case.
Want the power.
But
Sorry.
Also very new.
Power.
Still doesn't look like it's been used. So I will not be buying any additional impacts there, Matthew.
All right. Thoughts on Bosch?
Bosch tools, appliances, what?
I feel like if they're in too many, like Bosch has tools, appliances, like I feel like if you're too diversified, you're probably not good at any of them. But I don't know.
Their stuff is all pretty good.
Oh, all right.
They do make good tools and they do make pretty good appliances. So especially their
That's kind of
dishwashers.
Sony, because Sony's and everything, and most of their stuff's pretty good.
Yeah, I know the Bosch dishwashers are pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think I own any Bosch tools or Bosch appliances, but hey.
all right.
Nonetheless.
No curveball today.
No curb. Oh, yes. Oh, hold on. Wait, Matt just said something.
Heard great things about dishwashers. There you go.
Hey, good job, Matt.
Cabinet advice, appliance
Appreciate you.
advice.
Blade of choice. Ooh.
Switchblade or...
Yeah, I prefer this Benchmade.
This is a Benchmade company. A lot of Benchmades.
There's a lot of Benchmades here.
Kicking around.
Different blades, though, I think they're talking about.
I know. But.
So I liked this company called Onsrud or Onsrud, I'm not sure, a German company. They make a lot of CNC router bits. I don't think they make saw blades anymore, but I still have half a dozen or so kicking around here that I really liked. And then now we run a lot of the Tenru silencer or silencer. Tenru silencer blades.
Is that the blue ones?
The blue ones.
Yeah.
We run those in both our Capex and in our table saw. Our table saw has a 30 millimeter arbor, so we're able to kind of swap the blades in between. Although our table saw does take 14-inch blades, so when we do drop down to a 10-inch blade for the Capex, the depth or height of our cut drops significantly. But most of the time we don't need a full 14-inch blade, so we'll kind of bounce around back and forth between the two. And that's one of the things that I do like about having, the same sized table saw and miter saw, is you can bounce blades back around. We have a couple other table saws here in our shop that have a standard 5/8 arbor, so can't use those blades with the Capex, but our field saws you can, and some of the other miter saws that we have. So
some flexibility.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's it for the Q&A today, guys.
Cool.
This video will be live on YouTube
tomorrow
if you missed some of it and want to catch up on it. And of course, there's 20-something episodes of Revealed. So
26, I think. Or is this
26.
We've done a half year, or we're about to do a half year?
We're about to do a half year, so catch up on that if you've missed it.
Thanks.
What are you looking for in your new hire? Ooh, next week, Lando. Too late.
Oh, that's a great question for next week.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Nicole. We will answer that one next week.
All right.
But we'll catch you guys later. See ya.